Today's episode is brought to you by Musical Theater Radio's merch store. Looking for that perfect gift for someone or just want to treat yourself to some great musical theater themed merch? Head to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the All Things Theater button on the homepage and check out all the different designs available. And now, today's interview. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. It is always great to have a previous guest return to the show because if they are back, that means they've been working hard since last we spoke and they have something new to talk about. Today's guest last joined us in October of 2023. So let's find out what's been going on since then and welcome James A. Rocco back to the program. James, how are you?
How are you, Jean-Paul? Nice to talk to you again.
I know. It's crazy how time just goes and passes.
It does. It feels like yesterday, but here we are again.
I know. But the thing is, with theater, it's not a surprise, though, because you talk to somebody, they're working on something, they go away. It can be a year, it can be two before, they have anything to work on. So I'm used to this. But it's great to have you back. Thank you. Thank you for coming back on.
Thanks.
So for our guests who didn't listen to the first podcast, and shame on you, you should go back and listen to it. We got to know who you are. So let's get a 30-second bio of who James is.
That's funny. All right, let's see. I was a professional child actor in New York City. I joined the unions in the 60s, when I was a mere child. I grew up going to professional children's school. I did things like, I was in the film of the Robert Morosco play Child's Play, directed by Sidney Lumet, toured as Enoch Snow Jr. in Carousel with John Raitt. I was in Oliver. Then as an adult, I was the second Rum Tum Tugger on Broadway in Cats, toured as Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. And I also directed and produced my first show in New York when I was 16, a revival of the musical Henry Sweet Henry. And that led to this crazy career I've had. Sometimes a performer, sometimes a director, sometimes a writer, sometimes a producer. Wrote a show called Nightclub Confidential that really kicked things off. Traveled with the Duke Ellington Band and Sophisticated Ladies. Sang with Herbie Hancock. Currently, right now, I'm the associate producer at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle. And I also still write and produce. I have my own company, 30 Saints Productions, that writes and produces shows that are done all over the country. And that's me in a nutshell. I'm still twirling. My friend Dennis Deal, who wrote Nightclub Confidential with me, and Albert Evans, we used to say, we're twirling, and still twirling.
Nice. Let's just talk about being a kid in the industry. What was that like? Was it weird? What was your experience like that? I'm always curious.
I mean, I loved doing what I was doing, so I was oblivious to it being weird. Looking back on it, it was, I was a working child. I went to a school where we had a switchboard, so as we walked into the school, they would say, oh, you have an audition, or you have to be at a rehearsal, or you have to, and you would go, or they would come and get you out of class. And that's what it was like. I loved it though. And believe it or not, it was this, maybe the entire school had about 100 kids in it. And it was at the time, because it was the early 70s, it wasn't common for kids to be working. So you had to really go to a school that was set up so that you could do correspondence, homework, you could work, because you'd be on the road and you'd have to somehow get your schoolwork done. But those 100 kids or so that were in that school, I went to Lincoln Square Academy, which was right across the street from Lincoln Center. So that was my campus. We're still all in touch with each other. It's 30, 40, 50 years later, and we are all still, many of us are still in touch with each other.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was, Irene Cara was in my class, and Stephanie Mills, and those sort of people are the people that we grew up together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when you look at it from now, you're like, oh, those people, everybody knows those people. But back then, you're just kids. You're all just
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just
We just
it's
loved each other.
crazy.
And we all sang and we all danced and we all acted
Yeah,
and, we were and all auditioning for the same shows. And, it was crazy,
yeah.
but fun.
Awesome.
I mean, really
Oh,
fun. And I cherish them.
those would be memories that, that that aren't going to go away. That's fantastic. So let's talk about everything that's happened from October 2023 till now.
I think, let's see, in October, I was probably going to start directing and choreographing, co-directing and choreographing White Christmas.
Yes, I think that
Um,
was the last time we talked. Yeah.
that's a show that I've done a lot, and I was going to do a revival of it here at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle, and it went wonderfully. It was so much fun to revisit these dances that I had made up 20 years ago, and it was thrilling to see them again on stage. When you're a choreographer, I don't really do a lot of choreography much anymore, but when you're a choreographer, a lot of, especially in live theater, that work disappears. And I always think of there was a sweet spot for me when I think I was choreographing really well. And that sweet spot included White Christmas. There was a couple of shows that just seemed to be when I was really centered in doing choreography. And I'm so proud of that work. And it was wonderful to see it again. So I did that. And then I jumped immediately into a year of working on a new musical called Signs of Life, which is written by my friend Chris Delaire, produced by a terrific new production company called Astrolab. And we spent most of 2024 developing that show, which led to a major presentation in New York in the fall of 2024. That was really a treat for me. Working on a new project is so rejuvenating, and it was filled with such talented colleagues, and I have high hopes for the project. Right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern because they're making a recording of the score. So there's my participation is moderate to limited at this point. It'll resume again, I assume, in a couple of months because there was a really good response to the show. I think there's something really special happening. What was very exciting about it, and you may find this, so it was a cast of, I believe it was 16 people, 13 females, and primarily female vocal music. So the choral sound was a sound that you never hear. Oh. And it was spectacular. We had an incredible cast too. So it was just amazing to see it come to life. And we did workshops in Seattle with Seattle actors. And then we went to New York and did a workshop in New York with New York actors. And so that was otherworldly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like once the recording's done, I'm going to have another interview to do.
So. It's really, you should meet the writer, and he's an unusually talented young person. Sweet. And I'm fortunate to know him.
I love supporting new works. So yeah, definitely an introduction at some point would be fantastic.
I'd love that.
So you've got the new work you're working on. You did White Christmas. Tell us a little bit. What have you been doing with 30 Saints Productions?
Well, this year we had a real renaissance with the company and started to expand. So we've been doing music licensing for jukebox musicals for quite a while now. We've probably licensed 40 musicals at this point. Basically, our slogan is, you write the show, we'll license the songs for you. I have a partner, Emily Villano, who works with me in that aspect of the company, and it's just been terrific. We license all of the Wonderette shows, among many others that are in various stages of development, and that's been exciting. But a couple of the shows were looking for publishers, and Emily and I had a discussion and thought, well, let's see what happens if we start licensing the shows themselves. And so we're making this foray into licensing, and that led to us licensing some of the songbook shows that I've been writing for the last 20 years. We just started licensing a holiday songbook, which basically traces the evolution of winter holiday music from Deck the Halls all the way up to contemporary songs like Christmas Baby Please Come Home and Rockin' Little Christmas and songs like that. And it's really, one critic, we did a production of it already last holiday season, and one critic said, this is edutainment at its best. And we have a little tour booked for this coming holiday season, and some theaters have already jumped on the bandwagon and are starting to license the show to do it themselves this year. And we're going to expand that whole line. The songbook series is going to become available to theaters to produce on their own. We have one coming up called The Women Who Wrote the Songs, all female songwriters. We have one coming up called Broadway in Love, which we've already done a concert version of, Broadway Love Songs, and many, many others. In fact, we think we're going to also do like a George M. Cohan and early, sort of the birth of musical theater one. By the end of the year will be available. So hopefully theaters will start doing them. You and I talked about doing a Canadian one.
I'll talk to you again once we're done the interview.
Okay. I wish I knew the musicals better. I don't really know the musicals as well as I probably should. Didn't Billy Bishop start up there?
It did. I love Billy Bishop. It's such a great show. It didn't last very long on Broadway. I know that.
I think it was at Playwrights Horizons, and so it was a limited run. That's my recollection. I could be wrong about that. But I was supposed to direct it at one point, and so I became pretty familiar with it and loved it. I ended up not, because something else came up, and that's the crazy thing with our business too.
It's a great little two-hander. So
yeah, beautiful show.
But I love what you're doing with the songbooks, because you're right. Theaters, it's a nice way to bring people in and keep the costs down, but still entertain and still do some performance. It's a nice, because putting on a show is expensive, and you got all this stuff, but something like this, it fits that perfect little niche. Like you said, you can tour, you can do it. It's a specialty thing. So, congratulations on finding that niche market and putting this stuff together.
It really is a way to engage your audiences in the industry and in the history of what we all have been dedicated to. It's crazy because I've seen the audiences obviously be of a certain age group, be older people, but I see 12-year-old kids in the audience. This one young person came up to me after a show and was very enthusiastic. It was as if they had never seen anything like this before. It reminded me of when I was first introduced to musical theater. I saw The King and I thought I had seen God. It was just perfect. And this youngster said, I said, what was your favorite song? Thinking they were going to say one of something from Hair or something from Rent or something. And instead she said, oh, that song about Only Make Believe I Love You. And I was like, unbelievable. This 12-year-old is in love with Showboat now. And she actually asked me, how could she see Showboat? And, of course, there's not currently a live production that I knew about that I could recommend. So I, of course, said, well, you can see these movies, but they're not exactly like the stage show, but that's a way to introduce you. Anyway, she's actually kept in touch with me. She's now moved on to Oklahoma, and So all of a sudden we've got a convert.
But that's fantastic. And I think more young people should discover, the origin. You hear, I love musical theater. I love musical theater, but really they're only saying they love like the last 15 years, 20 years.
Listen, I just did one. Emily, myself, Raymond Berg, who has collaborated on a number of songbooks, and Aaron Schwab, and I just put together we taught a group of high school students how to write a songbook. So, and it actually opens this coming Friday.
Wow.
It's a concert version, so it's not a licensable version yet. It's being done in a concert hall, but we had them research songs from musicals that involve teenagers, from Good News
Yeah.
to contemporary. And at first, they were only familiar with contemporary shows, Mean Girls, they wanted to do Heathers, they wanted to be more chill. And when I introduced the Varsity Drag to them, I thought, they're never going to want to do this, but I'm still going to. I love the Varsity Drag. I think it's wonderfully funny, and I don't know, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
So they're doing the Varsity Drag. They loved it. They went crazy. I showed them the video of Penny Singleton. I don't know if you've ever seen it, from the very original movie that they did of the Broadway show. So like the movie was maybe made in the 1929 or 1930 or something. It's not, they don't even have the full film anymore. They just have pieces of this film left, which I find unbelievable because it was a gigantic hit. But nonetheless, Penny Singleton singing the Varsity Drag turned these kids on, man. So,
well, it doesn't matter when a song is written. If it's good, it is good. It's timeless.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There are so many songs from the 20s and 30s and 40s even, that are just incredible, but they just get lost. And because every year more stuff comes out. Like they say on Spotify, how many, like 5 million songs or something, some ridiculous number gets added every day. Every day. So, it just pushes back all these other classics that, it takes people like yourself putting together these songbooks to remind people these songs exist. Check them out. So
edutainment. It actually helps develop your audience to come to the actual shows. You introduce them to a song like I Get a Kick Out of You. They fall in love with it. Hard to believe they've never heard I Get a Kick Out of You before, but they haven't. And or Let's Do It. And they think this is so funny and racy. And they realize all of a sudden, wow, I want to know what Anything Goes is, or I want to know who Cole Porter is. And it helps, develop your audience and develop your theater company.
For sure.
Your community.
I'm on your website looking at the other musicals and plays that you've added to your, like, tell us a little bit more about Oi to the World.
A couple of my friends put that show together, and Emily and I licensed the music for them, and they were part of making this decision that we wanted to license shows. Oi to the World is a holiday musical that is filled with songs written by Jewish composers about Christmas. And it takes place in the Borscht Belt. It is funny and tuneful. It is really a great show, and people love it. Because if it wasn't for Jewish songwriters, we wouldn't have a holiday song market at all. Irving Berlin actually changed the world. No one was writing pop holiday songs. They didn't think it was a good market. Yeah. And White Christmas changed that entirely. Prior to White Christmas, you have very, very few popular. They were usually hymns or secular songs, or, originally intended like Deck the Halls as a carol.
Nice. And I see you also have on here, this is a musical theater channel, but you got some plays in there. Tell us a little bit about the other things you've got in there.
Well, I directed a number of plays by Chris Sherman, and I think that she is the female Neil Simon. She is hysterical. She's the Italian female Neil Simon. And I love her plays. And I just thought, you know what? We're doing this. We're going to start licensing. I really respect what Chris does. Same thing with Christine Toy Johnson, brilliant Asian American dramatist who writes these terrific shows. And they exist, they're there, and they haven't been out in the world. And I thought, what better, I'm going to write a blog next month called When You've Got Friends Like Mine. These people are my friends. And this is what I've always done. This is how I became a producer and a director, really. I was acting, and all of a sudden I realized I could help get this show produced, or I could help get my friend's show on at least, a presentation or a reading. And the next thing I knew, I was like producing readings. And then the next thing I know, I was producing shows. Next thing I know, so I've always been this kind of crazy rainmaker. And it dawned on me, Christine Toy Johnson has written some wonderful plays. Let me help her get them out in the world. Let me be part of it. I want to be part of it. We're working on, she has another one that's going to be coming out in a few weeks that we're going to announce called Empress Mei Li. That's a really hysterical comedy that's sort of like crazy on the edge of Crazy Rich Asians. So I'm excited about that. And the same thing with Chris Sherman. Her plays are really funny, and I would like more people to do them. I could see a market in Florida because there are these, she writes these Italian comedies, and I really feel like she captures what an Italian family is like.
Nice. Well, and as a writer, I just gotta say thank you for doing this, and because finding opportunities for someone to trust in you and promote you and take care of you like this and create this opportunity it's rare and it's difficult to find. So when someone like you comes along, it's like, thank you. Like we can. What else
we're in together, and I've been very fortunate and to get to do this for a while, and I just feel like, what else would I do at this point in my life? Yeah. I sure I could continue to direct musicals and choreograph musicals, which I love. I'm not saying I don't love doing it, but this is kind of exciting to see other people's work come to life is great.
Well, is there anything else that you're working on that you want to let people know about or promote?
I think I mentioned to you the last time that I really started out as a singer. I don't know if you know that. And I thought that's really what I thought I would do with my life. I traveled with Herbie Hancock singing, I thought that's what I would do. And then somehow the theater took over my life. And the next thing I knew, I was doing all this other stuff. And one of the reasons I wanted to leave, I worked at the Ordway Center for Performing Arts for many years. And one of the reasons I ultimately decided to leave that gig is I thought, I don't want to end my life as an administrator. I want to definitely have a period again in my life where I sing. So I've been singing again quite a lot, particularly in the Midwest. Somehow I must be exotic or something. I'm the Italian guy stuck in the Midwest. And I seem to be selling out these concerts. And I have one this coming Sunday called Songs from an Italian Restaurant. And it's songs that my father would sing around the house, like Volare, which I never thought I would be singing. But all of a sudden, it's just pure joy. I always imagined that when I retired, I would get a stool and I would become the male Mabel Mercer. And that's what I'm doing. I guess I'm aiming. I'm on my way. I'm not as old as Marilyn May, but I will be someday.
Do you actually think artists and theater people ever actually retire per se? Maybe from singing, but then we find something else to do. I think I've told my fiance she's going to retire in 8 years. I'm never retiring. I'm going to be doing this till I die
Well, how
because
would you retire? How would that happen?
exactly, because your brain is always going and there's always something and you're always inspired by somebody who's done something and go, "Ooh, I could do this." And thank you for like so yeah.
Yeah,
I'm never.
absolutely. That's absolutely correct. It's fascinating. There's
Plus I
always
don't plus I don't have a pension anyways. So let's be honest, I can't retire. As
well,
I've said to her, I can't wait to turn to 65 because then I will actually get a steady paycheck from the government for my old age pension.
I
So
love that.
it'd be exciting. It'd be weird to have money all the time.
Congratulations.
Well,
I'm waiting for it too, though. I'm waiting for it too. We're
I
artists.
got a while, but I can't wait. Awesome. So anything else that you want to promote?
I think I mentioned to you that we were remastering the Nightclub Confidential album. And
no,
so,
I don't think you did.
oh, it's actually beautiful. It sounds great. I can't believe I haven't sent it to you.
Yeah.
It hasn't been released yet, but the original cast album of Nightclub Confidential was remastered. Peter Link originally did the album, and
Mhm.
a fantastic guy named Phil Klum, because we don't have the original tapes anywhere, um, remastered it for us, and it sounds impeccable. I would love to do a new recording of it. But in the meantime, I'm thrilled that we're going to get this back out in the world by the end of the year. It'll be out. I don't know exactly when yet. In fact, I have to meet with someone today about designing a cover. You want to design a cover to an album?
Well, then I look forward to talking to you again at some point. Not not
Yeah.
not a year and a half later.
Well, you can play that album, that's for sure.
100%. I can definitely play that. That's
I want to
awesome.
thank you for the broadcast of A Country Christmas Carol
Oh,
too. That's been wonderful. I'm so glad we do that, and it's a tradition. And I really appreciate what you do. Thank you.
no problem. Yeah, I love playing that at Christmas. It's been a nice, it's a nice thing that I'd love to do every year. It's just a little thing. We've done
Yeah,
it 2 years now, I think, and hey, as long as I'm still running, I don't see why not, and play it for people to enjoy.
let's do it.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for coming on, telling us a little bit about what you've been doing since 2023. How do people learn more about you? The websites, the socials, about 30 Saints Productions, all that fun stuff.
Well, 30saintsproductions.com has everything about the company, and jamesrocco.com is often kept up about what I'm doing. We're actually in the process of trying to figure out how to get more of the recordings out there. We have YouTube channels and Facebook pages. Just look up my name, James A. Rocco, or 30 States Productions. You'll find us. There's lots of stuff about the songbook on YouTube.
Fantastic. Well, it's always great to have you on. Yeah, we'll definitely have you on again a little bit sooner to talk about all the new stuff you've got going because you are busy and you're going to have new stuff. So we got to have you back on. So thank you, James, for coming back on again. It's always good to talk to you.
Talk to you soon.
Awesome. All right. So we were just speaking with James A. Rocco, the creator of 30 Saints Productions, all the songbooks he's working on. Check all that stuff out. Support each other in this crazy community that is musical theater. Because, if we don't, who will? So go check out his stuff. Tune in next week as we speak with another guest or guest about our life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.